Sometimes I feel like we brought it upon ourselves. We were looking for adventure and ended up calling disaster upon our own heads. We were too loud, too confident, laughing off the warnings, ignoring every piece of advice, and that's why we nearly paid with our lives. The day started out perfectly. A light chill hung in the air, not yet warmed by the spring sun. A soft mist curled among the tall fir trees, wrapping the trunks and paths in a white haze. Dry twigs crunched underfoot, and somewhere above, birds occasionally called out, faint and distant. There were 4 of us. Alex walked ahead, cheerfully humming an old tune and swinging a stick like a sword. He was always the one who found trouble first, and probably the one who suggested leaving the main trail to explore deeper into the forest. Behind him walked Mike, calm and level-headed. He kept an eye on the trees around us as if trying to memorize the way, all the while holding a map and compass, tools that had already saved us from getting lost a few times. Sarah, straight as an arrow and a bit arrogant, walked alongside Lisa. She teased Alex, joking that he would get lost again and drag everyone along. Lisa just smiled, occasionally stopping to photograph the strange, moss-covered tree trunks. "Look around, guys," Alex said, spreading his arms wide. "It's beautiful. No cars, no people. Just us and nature. And a complete loss of orientation in 5 minutes," Mike muttered, checking the compass. "Oh, stop whining," Sarah laughed. "We haven't even gone a kilometer yet." "Well," Lisa said cautiously, "I'd still rather stick closer to the main trail." Alex waved her off. "Stop thinking so much. Feel it. Where's your sense of adventure?" We laughed. At that moment, everything seemed perfectly safe. Just another day in the forest. Alex marched ahead confidently, as if he knew this part of the forest like the back of his hand. He pointed toward a faint trail barely visible through the grass and fallen leaves, insisting that was the way we should go. "Shortcut," he shouted. "You'll see. It's going to be beautiful." Mike looked carefully at the map and shook his head. "There's no trail here, officially." He tapped the printed map with his finger. "Even better." Alex winked and strode forward without looking back. Sarah rolled her eyes. "Another shortcut. Right. Next time, let's just stick to the map like normal people." Lisa gave Mike a worried glance, silently asking for backup. But he just sighed and waved his hand. "Fine. Let's at least mark the trees as we go." We followed Alex. At first, the new path did seem interesting. Twisted trees formed natural arches overhead. The mist curled along the ground, and the smell of damp bark and moss made it feel like real, wild nature. But very quickly, everything began to change. The path narrowed, then disappeared entirely. All around us, just thick undergrowth and towering dark trees, blocking even the faint sunlight. "Hey, Alex, maybe that's enough?" Sarah raised her voice. "Where's the road, genius?" "It's here. Somewhere," he mumbled, looking around. "We've been wandering for an hour," Lisa added, her voice trembling slightly. Mike stopped and stared hard at the compass. "No, that's it. We're way off the route. We need to turn back." I can find it, I swear." Alex tried to defend himself. Sarah just snorted angrily. We tried retracing our steps, but the trees looked identical everywhere, and the mist only grew thicker. Sometimes it felt like we were walking in circles. The silence became heavy. Even the birds had disappeared. Just when it felt like we were trapped in an endless green maze, a gray, crooked structure emerged through the fog ahead. "See? I told you we'd find something interesting," Alex exclaimed, pointing at the building. "Great," Sarah said dryly. "Tell me, was it your plan to drag us into abandoned shacks in the middle of nowhere?" Mike exchanged a glance with Lisa without saying a word. The house really didn't look good. The roof sagged, the walls were peeling, the yard was overgrown and wild. The windows were boarded up, the door half open. Everything about the place screamed abandonment. But somewhere inside, thin wisps of smoke still rose. Someone was home after all. We approached cautiously. The door creaked as Alex gently pushed it open. Inside, it was dark and smelled of old wood, smoke, and something else, sour and damp, like in a forgotten cellar. "Hello? Anyone here?" Mike called out carefully. A few seconds of silence. Then, from deep inside the house, a man appeared, old, over 60, with a thick gray beard and heavy, wary eyes. He wore a worn-out flannel shirt and greasy trousers. In his hand he held a wooden mug, steaming with something hot. "Who are you?" he rasped, narrowing his eyes. "Tourists," Mike replied carefully. "We got a little off track." The old man stared at us for several long seconds, as if weighing whether it was worth even talking to us. "Come in," he grunted finally and stepped aside. Inside it was surprisingly warm. A fire crackled in the corner fireplace. The walls were hung with old photographs, hunting trophies, and worn tools. Hooks, lanterns, even a few broken rifles. We dropped our backpacks and sat down on the benches near the table. The old man placed a clay teapot and some rough mugs in front of us. "Tea. Free," he said curtly. Then he poured himself something clear and sharply smelling into a small glass and knocked it back in one gulp. "Where are you from?" he asked, frowning. "From the city," Sarah answered shortly. The old man snorted. "City folk. Figures. The locals have been gone a long time now." His voice grew even rougher, and there was something unsettling in his gaze. The old man silently poured us more tea and filled himself another glass of his liquor. He took a sip, lit a cigarette, and sat down heavily across from us. "Anything interesting around here?" Alex asked, spreading the map on the table. "Yeah. Any scenic spots?" Lisa added, brightening a little. "Maybe old churches, lakes, something unusual?" First, the old man stayed silent. Then, after another gulp, he started talking about abandoned roads, overgrown trails, old hunting grounds. He spoke in broken fragments, reluctantly, as if each word cost him extra strength. We listened while sipping tea. The conversation was calm, even a little cheerful. The old man even cracked some rough jokes, especially about city fools who wandered these forests without a clue. Hours passed unnoticed. Smoke from the fireplace hung thick under the ceiling. The liquor was flowing faster into him than tea into us. Eventually, when we were getting ready to leave, the window outside already showed complete darkness. Only the weak flame of a kerosene lamp held the night at bay. "Time for us to go," Mike said, putting on his backpack. "Thanks for the tea." Alex stepped toward the door, pulling it open. Suddenly, the old man raised his hand sharply, as if to stop us. "Don't go," he rasped. His voice was suddenly firm, even sober. "You shouldn't walk this forest after sunset." We all froze for a moment. Sarah scoffed skeptically. "Oh, come on. A forest is a forest." Alex smiled. "We're not kids. We'll be fine." Lisa clutched the strap of her backpack, clearly uncomfortable. The old man slowly sat back down, staring straight at us. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "There's something out there you don't want to meet. And if it notices you, there's no way back." Mike seemed about to say something, but stopped. The tension in the air was almost physical. Only after a long pause, sighing heavily, the old man crushed his cigarette and began. "Fine. Since you're going anyway, at least listen. Maybe it'll save your lives." He poured himself another shot and began to tell the story. The village was small. The old man began, gazing into the fire. Just a few streets, maybe 120 souls, give or take. Wooden houses, well kept. Simple folk. Picking berries, hunting, fishing, raising livestock. Nobody wasted time on nonsense. They lived their lives quietly. He took another sip and continued. Then, it started. First, someone lost a few heads of cattle. Then Mikola's boy went missing. Went into the forest for mushrooms, never came back. They searched for 3 days. Found only his boots and strange tracks in the swamp. As if something big, heavy, but moving on all fours had passed through. The old man stubbed out his cigarette and gave a grim chuckle. At first, they thought it was a bear or wolves. But every week, more people disappeared. And the strange thing was no signs of a struggle. It was like they were just taken. He shifted his gaze to us. One evening, I saw it myself. It was getting dark. Fog lying low. I went to the river to check my nets. And behind me, I heard scraping, like claws dragging across stone. The old man paused. Only the crackle of the fire filled the silence. I turned around, and there, in the fog, it stood. Thin, long-limbed, skin pale like a rotting mushroom, fingers so long they brushed the ground. And those eyes, black, dead. Lisa squeezed her mug so hard her knuckles turned white. It just stared at me, didn't rush, didn't growl, just stood there, swaying slightly, studying me. I prayed, and maybe it helped, because after a few minutes, it turned and vanished into the fog. The old man took another gulp. After that, I knew. Never touch its territory. Never hunt there. Never fish. And after sunset, never step outside. No matter what. He looked at us with a heavy, faded gaze. The villagers tried to fight back, set traps, went out with guns at night. But it was useless. Those who went out never came back. One by one, the houses went dark. Streets emptied. He inhaled deeply from his cigarette, letting the smoke seep from his nostrils. Within a year, the village was dead. The survivors scattered. And now only ruins stand deep in the woods. Sometimes, you can still see something moving among the empty houses. But it's best not to look too closely. The old man finished his story and fell silent. The room grew heavy with stillness. Only the crackle of firewood broke the silence. We sat there, digesting his words. Alex sighed first and stood up. Well, nice scary story, he said, stretching. But it's time for us to go. Thanks for the tea, Mike added politely. He gave the old man a respectful look but said nothing more. Sarah stood up sharply, clearly eager to get out of the hut as quickly as possible. Lisa said nothing, clutching the strap of her backpack tightly. After sunset, the old man muttered, staring at us with his faded eyes. Don't stay out in the open. We didn't answer. Alex waved his hand and was the first to step outside into the night. Outside it was dark. The real, deep darkness where only the faint outlines of trees could be seen. The mist curled low over the ground, wrapping around our legs with cold tendrils. The air grew heavy, as if the whole world was holding its breath. We followed the trail back, or what we thought was the trail. In the daytime, it had seemed so familiar. But now every step sounded too loud. Branches rustled overhead. Sometimes there was a faint crack, as if invisible things moved among the trees. I still say he just had too much to drink, Alex muttered, leading the way. Or maybe he just wanted to scare us, Sarah added. So we'd stay and chop firewood for him. Maybe, Mike said quietly. He held a flashlight, but its beam barely pierced the thick mist a few meters ahead. Lisa walked last. From time to time, she glanced over her shoulder, as if expecting someone or something to emerge from the fog behind us. We walked in silence. The trail that had been so clear during the day now seemed to vanish beneath our feet. The trees seemed to crowd closer together, forming a narrow corridor that closed above our heads. And with every step, it became harder and harder to believe that everything was fine. After a while, we started noticing strange things. The bark on some trees was gouged with deep scratches, as if something had raked claws across them. In places, the earth was torn up, not like by wild boars or bears, but as if something long and heavy had slithered across the soft ground. Mike's flashlight flickered a few times, and each time it dimmed, our hearts skipped a beat. It's just the forest? Sarah muttered, more as if trying to convince herself than us. Suddenly, Alex stopped dead in his tracks. Did you hear that? He whispered. We froze. Somewhere in the mist ahead, there was a faint rustling sound, like something moving very low to the ground, carefully, slowly. We stood frozen in place. The rustling sound in the mist repeated, soft, dragging, almost imperceptible. as if something or someone was creeping closer, deliberately, cautiously. Mike carefully swung the flashlight toward the sound. The beam of light scattered uselessly in the dense fog, as if the mist itself was swallowing it. "Probably just a fox," Alex muttered uncertainly, though his voice trembled. We moved on, picking up the pace. Only now did we notice how hard it had become to breathe. The air grew thick, cold, and damp, as if the very forest was pressing against us, squeezing us from all sides. Ahead, through the mist, blurry outlines appeared. Trees, maybe, or perhaps the shapes of old abandoned buildings. Suddenly Mike stopped sharply and raised his hand. "Quiet," he whispered. We froze again. To the left, another soft scraping sound, then closer, and closer still. At first, I didn't see it, but then, the fog shifted slightly, like pushed by an invisible breath, and I saw it. It crouched low among the trees, hiding in the shadows. Its body was thin, almost skeletal, with pale, stretched skin that shimmered faintly in the flashlight's beam like old canvas. Long, thin arms braced against the ground. Its fingers, tipped with hooked claws, dug into the soil. The head was bald, jutting forward, and the dead, milky white eyes stared straight at us. Its mouth slowly stretched into a grin, revealing rows of tiny, needle-sharp teeth. None of us screamed. We just stood there, pinned by its gaze, while it shifted its weight slightly, as if getting ready to pounce. "Run!" Mike rasped out, and we ran, all at once, blindly into the mist. The mist swallowed us. I could only hear the ragged breathing of my friends, and a heavy, slithering sound behind us. It was moving faster than we were, but somehow still not rushing to catch us. Branches whipped across my face, roots grabbed at our feet. It was impossible to tell where we were going. In the dark and the fog, everything had lost its shape. Somewhere nearby, someone fell. A muffled cry. "This way!" Mike shouted, pointing to a dark shape emerging in the distance. An old building half hidden in the fog. We didn't hesitate. We ran for it like our lives depended on it. Because they did. End of chase scene. Inside the abandoned cabin. Night of survival begins. The door creaked as we burst inside the old cabin. It was dark and damp. The air was thick with the smell of mold and rotting wood. The floor groaned under our feet, the windows either boarded up or shattered. Mike slammed the door shut and found an old latch. It squealed but held. We leaned against the walls, gasping for breath, each of us trying to steady our nerves. Outside, silence. But it wasn't a comforting silence. It was suffocating, pressing against the windows and doors, daring us to breathe too loudly. Suddenly, something scraped along the wooden boards near the window. We froze. Then again, a light scratching sound, this time closer to the door. "We need something to defend ourselves," Mike whispered. We started searching frantically. In the corner, Lisa found an old shovel with a broken handle. Sarah grabbed a half-burned firewood stick from the hearth. Alex rummaged through a chest and suddenly cried out, "Got something! A shotgun!" We ran over. An old hunting rifle, rusted but maybe still functional. Beside it, a small box with a few shells. Mike quickly checked the weapon. 1, maybe 2 shots. No more. "It might be enough," Lisa whispered, gripping the shovel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Asterisk, asterisk. Outside, another sound. A slow, careful scratching, as if something was circling the building, studying it. Then, a sharp thud against the wall. We all jumped. Something large and heavy had struck the boards, as if testing their strength. "The light!" Mike hissed. "Turn off the flashlight." We killed the lights. Darkness consumed everything. We stood in silence, gripping whatever weapons we had, holding our breath, and waited. The night had only just begun. The first sound came when we had finally gone quiet. Somewhere outside the cabin, in the fog, a long, drawn-out howl echoed. Low, raspy, piercing, as if the forest itself was crying out in pain. We exchanged terrified glances. Then came the scraping. Slow, deliberate, as claws dragged across the wooden walls, peeling away old paint. "Goddamn," Alex muttered, gripping a wooden beam that trembled in his hands. Mike stood with the shotgun, ready to fire, but his fingers were pale with tension. Lisa clutched the old shovel to her chest, her eyes locked on the door and windows. "I told you," Sarah hissed at Mike. "I told you not to go off trail. This is all your fault." "You're yelling now?" Alex snapped, voice shaking with fear and anger. "You followed me too." "Yeah. And you led us into this hero," Sarah shouted back. "Enough," Lisa cut in, her voice suddenly firm and commanding. "Now is not the time to blame anyone." Silence fell. Even the thing outside seemed to pause. Then the scraping started again. Again and again. From one side of the cabin, then the other. As if it was circling us, searching for a weakness, testing every wall, every gap. Each sound shredded our nerves like razors. "We stay together," Lisa said firmly. Her hands no longer trembled. "Don't open the door. Don't open the windows. We wait until sunrise." Alex and Sarah were still fuming, but nodded. Mike tightened his grip on the shotgun. We gathered in the center of the room, back to back. Faces turned to the doors and windows, weapons ready, prepared to fight, if it came to that. Another howl outside, closer now. It vibrated in our bones, made our hearts pound in fear. We didn't speak. We barely dared to breathe. The night dragged on, each minute an eternity, each sound a threat. And the creature, it never left. The night seemed endless. We sat for hours in the dark, listening only to our own breathing, and the occasional scratch outside. Just when we began to hope that it had left, came back. The first blow shook the door so hard it nearly flew off its hinges. We jumped, huddled together in the center of the room. "It's breaking the door," Lisa shouted. Another impact. Boards cracked, and a swirl of fog poured inside. Through the splintered opening we saw pale fingers, long and clawed, tearing at the wood like hooks. "Shoot!" Alex yelled. Mike raised the shotgun blindly, took a breath, aimed and pulled the trigger. The deafening blast shattered the silence. A screech followed, deep, furious, and pained. We saw the creature retreat into the mist, the silhouette swallowed by the fog. But we knew that wouldn't be the end. It was still there, waiting. Mike dropped the shotgun. There were no shells left. We stood together in the center of the room, shaking, each gripping whatever we had, a stick, a shovel, a broken beam, ready to fight until the end. And then, light, thin rays pierced through cracks in the walls. The first glow of morning. The fog began to pull back, as if unwillingly retreating. Outside silence, total and unnatural. "The light," Lisa whispered. We all understood at once. This was our chance. Without waiting another second, we flung the door open and ran. We ran in silence, gasping for air, tripping over roots and rubble. The trees now looked different. In the morning light, they seemed less menacing, but we knew the danger hadn't disappeared. It was still there, hiding in the shadows. We didn't look back, just ran in the direction we believed we had come from. And only when we saw the first familiar markers, an old trail sign, a stone bridge over a dry creek, did we finally stop and let ourselves breathe. We walked in silence, each of us drained, physically, emotionally, mentally. When we finally reached the main trail, where everything had seemed so peaceful just the day before, the sun was already high above the trees. Sunlight spilled between the branches in warm patches. A breeze rustled the leaves. Somewhere, birds sang again. But the forest no longer felt safe. Every shadow, every rustle set us on edge. We didn't talk about what happened. There was no need. Each of us knew it wasn't a dream. We saw something real. Something no one would believe even if we told them. And maybe that was for the best. When we reached the nearest village, our first instinct was to drink water, wash the fog, dirt, and fear off our skin. Then, just sit in the sun and feel that we were still alive. But something in us had changed. From that day on, we knew, even in the safest, most familiar woods, there are places where you should never go. Sometimes I remember that night, and every time I feel a chill, not from the wind, not from the cold, but from the memory that sometimes your life hangs by a thread, and what saves you isn't strength or smarts, just stubbornness, the will to hold on, even when it feels like it's all over.